We got a new hero that's practically immortal and a brand new aspect for Marvel Champions. We got to talk about this one. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over Cards. Today we're going to be taking a first impression deep dive into the new Deadpool pack, as well as the pool aspect and some of the encounter cards that come along with it. So this was announced a couple days ago on Saturday, but I was at Gen Con. I was not able to record my first impressions. I looked through it while I was there, and I had a blast looking through it, but now that I'm back, I'm pseudo recovered. I got a little bit more sleep than what I had gotten in the last couple of weeks, and I'm ready to talk about Deadpool. In this video, we're going to be talking about Deadpool, his cards, overall thoughts, take a look at the new pool aspect, as well as talk about some of the community thoughts around Deadpool. And as always, timestamps will be listed so you can jump around to any part of that video that you want to see, or if you want to come back and see a specific part, you're more than welcome to do so. So let's start out by talking about his hero side. With 200 thwarts and 200 attack, he is a force to be reckoned with. But in all seriousness, I do really like how they're breaking the fourth wall with these cards and how they're having fun with, you know, some of Deadpool's shenanigans and messing and marking up some of the cards. I just think that it is a really clever way to do that. Let's talk about his actual stats. So it's a 2-2-1 stat line with 9 health and a 5 hand size with one of the craziest abilities in the game. It's called the Regenerating Degenerate. That's going to be hard to say. So basically what it says, it's when you would be defeated, instead you set your HP to 1, change to alter ego, and then put in an acceleration token on the main scheme. So outside of some very niche circumstances, he is invincible. You drop that HP to 0, you get to go to 1 health, flip over, and you're fine. And also, going along with that, adding that acceleration to the main scheme actually may be a good thing, because a lot of his cards interact with that mechanic, but we'll get into that a bit later. When he does flip to alter ego, he has the best recovery stat in the game at 8, and a standard hand size of 6. So you can basically, you set your hit points values at 1, basic recovery. If you've not increased your health by any means, you get right back up to full health with a basic recovery action. Really, really good. He has a phenomenal ability on his alter ego side. His called Break the Fourth Wall ability, and it allows you to discard a card from your hand to search your deck for a Deadpool event and add it to your hand. So the flexibility here is going to be incredibly powerful. So pretty much whatever you need, you can go search and find that exact piece that you need in order to take on the challenge that's being presented in front of you. So if you have no threat on the table and you have a huge crisis averted in your hand, toss that card, go find something that's going to help you deal damage, whatever, and is going to just be super flexible. He has a couple events that we've already seen that can be used with this fourth wall ability to go grab it. Let's talk about those. He's got Exhausting Personality, which, love the name. It's a 0 cost event, and you get a choice between 2 actions. So you can either place an acceleration token on the main scheme and then stun and confuse an enemy. Again, those acceleration tokens do matter, and they will kind of interact with some of his kit, but also a 0 cost to stun and confuse. We like that. Or you can choose to exhaust a player's identity, then they get to draw a card for every acceleration token on the main. A really awesome way to stun and confuse, allows you to flip down, have some ability to safely pull off your fourth wall ability, or especially in multiplayer, I'm really looking forward to passing out some major amounts of cards once you have 3, 4 acceleration tokens on the main scheme, because in multiplayer, acceleration tokens are not as big of a hindrance as they are in solo. So if you have 4 acceleration tokens on the main scheme, you can either draw 4 cards for yourself, or you can pass out these cards to another player, meaning that Deadpool could actually be a pretty good teammate to have around. Another one of his cards is Maximum Effort, and this is probably the card I'm most excited for in his kit, and this card is bonkers good. So it's a 0 cost event that allows you to take damage up to your remaining hit points to deal that much damage to an enemy. So what that means is, since he cannot die, and without increasing your health at all, if he has full health, it's a 0 for 9, which is crazy efficient. But if you add an endurance and a symbiote suit, it's a 0 for 22 damage. And you flip down, you trigger his ability, sit there at 1 HP, flip over to Alter Ego, and you just threw 22 damage at the villain. Basically, this card can one-shot almost any villain pretty easily, and since you can get it back in Alter Ego with his Breaking the Fourth Wall ability, you can recover and then jump right back up and do it again. You can also utilize this card with like Mutant Education, shuffle these cards back into your deck, and Deadpool's damage output is going to be crazy good. On the flip side of that, here's another card. Sorry, this is hilarious. His kit is just good. Yoo-Hoo is the same as Maximum Effort, but for thwarting, it does cost 1, but it's you take damage and remove that much threat. So I think this is less good in solo. It's gonna be nice to snipe like a side scheme, or maybe clear off the main. But in solo, I'd much rather just go for Maximum Effort and kill the villain because he can rush so well. I think threat is not going to be as big of an issue. It could be a big issue, and this could help, but if I have the ability to do Maximum Effort and just kind of throw damage at the villain, I'm going to go with that. That being said, in multiplayer, you can use Yoo-Hoo with Overwatch to remove pretty much all the threat. So same math as before, with all of our upgrades, you can go 1 cost for 22 threat removal, which is way more than you would need. If you have both of these in your hand, you do not have to do the maximum, right? You can do a Yoo-Hoo for 5 threat. You can take 5 damage, remove 5 threat. And I think in solo, that's probably where we'll be looking at, but also in multiplayer, because you are adding so many accelerations to the main scheme, it could be pretty beneficial to have this as well. Next up, we have this card is fire. I think that this is the best card art in the game. It is effectively the new Gamma Slam. So it's a 3-cost event and has a force response that says you need to take a damage if this card is in your hand at the end of the turn. This is important because it feeds into the action, because for that 3 cost, when you play it, you deal X damage, where X is the amount of damage you have sustained. So now this is where it gets super combo-y. You can use Maximum Effort to deal 9 damage, and then flip down, flip up, use this card to deal the 8 damage because you've sustained 8 damage, so 3 for 8 right there. And just right there, it's a pretty easy first turn. You could do this on first turn for 17 damage on turn 1. It's not that hard to do because all you need is one of these in your hands, and then with the 4th wall ability, you could grab the other one. And it seems really good. You can rush down that first stage of the villain very quickly. He has a lot of really high risk cards playing directly into the theme that is Deadpool, and I told you we would come back to it, but the acceleration tokens, they start to bring power to some of his other cards, like Montage. So this is 1 wild resource, it's a resource card, but it generates an additional resource for every acceleration token, up to 3 additional resources for a total of 4. So this is a resource card that could generate 4 wild resources, which is something we have not seen before in Champions. It can be insanely powerful if you get there. And that's where I start to wonder how often this will generate more than 2, especially like in a solo game with how fast Deadpool can win. I think if we're going with Deadpool in a solo game, we're probably sitting at 2 acceleration tokens on the main, which still you're getting a 3 cost or a 3 resource card, wild resource card, which is insanely good, but also like maybe that the placement of that second token wins you the game. And so in a lot of the solo games, I think that Deadpool is just going to be rush in pretty much any aspect. And so I'm wondering how much effectiveness this card is going to get. That being said, in multiplayer, this is going to be a 4 resource card, and it's going to be really good. Cable is his signature ally and has a 3 cost with a 1/2/3 stat line. However, he does get +1 thwart and +1 attack for every acceleration on the main scheme to a max of +3. So now if you have 2 accelerations on the main scheme, we can use Montage to pay for Cable in completion, and then he'll be a 3/4 stat line. So that's pretty solid. I'm going to be interested to run some Voltron or like healing builds around Cable to help him do a lot of the heavy lifting, especially in the longer games. But even still, with if 3 acceleration tokens on the main scheme, let's realistically talk about 2. If 2 acceleration tokens are on the main scheme, he can swing for 4 attack. Now, if there's ways to ready him or just keep him around, 4 attack in a solo game is a significant amount of chunk of damage that you need. Now, combine that with all the other ways that Deadpool has access to damage, and I think Deadpool is going to be pretty quick. So with all of those acceleration tokens that we're adding, we we do run the risk of just threading out very easily. However, we do have some mitigation with the upgrade called It Ain't Over. It's a 1-cost upgrade. You attach it to the main scheme. It gets +2 threat threshold for each acceleration token on it. So now you just have a higher and higher threshold. So this gives you enough breathing room to hopefully not need to worry too much about placing those acceleration tokens. And also just in a solo game, allows you to hopefully save yourself a turn or two before you scheme through that first phase or lose the game. Now, it wouldn't be Deadpool if we did not talk about his weapons. First up, we have the restricted card, Deadpool's Katana. This is a 2-cost upgrade that allows you to exhaust it, you take 1 damage, and then deal 2 damage with piercing. This one's fine. It's nothing too exciting on its own, but it does help fuel some of the epic this card is fire plays because it's helping you sustain more damage that allows you to then throw more damage with this card's fire. So there's synergy within the kit, but the piercing I think is going to be key for Deadpool because he is wanting to throw a lot of huge chunks of damage with like maximum effort. You can use this card to deal yourself a damage, pierce any tough because that can really ruin some maximum effort plays. So because it has piercing, clear the way to get ready to come at him for the maximum effort. And then finally, our last Deadpool card that we're going to talk about today is called Armed to the Teeth. This is a crazy 2-cost upgrade that allows you to search your entire collection for a weapon from any aspect and then attach it face down to this card. That means any weapon you want, sonic rifle, hand cannons, anything from any aspect. Can be off aspect. If you're playing aggression, you can grab a sonic rifle and you get to put it into play. It's from your collection, which is another really cool way to break that 4th wall. But then as an action, you can exhaust Armed to the Teeth and swap the card with a different weapon that you control. And so now if you have your katana, you can swap it in with the sonic rifle. And this is, I think, pretty fun because you can use the sonic rifle, have it at 1 charge, swap it back with the katana, and then just every other turn swap and you have a on-call confuse every single turn, or hand cannons with the plus attack. It just gives a lot of flexibility, especially when you're running weapons with specific charges. At this point, I want to talk a little bit about some of the cards or aspects that I'm really excited for with Deadpool. Mainly anything that can increase his HP. So the symbiote suits, endurance, and heck, at this point I'm even running downtime. We can just get as much health into that pool so that we can get some major payoffs from his event cards, and then with downtime heal it up even quicker. I am also really looking forward to using Mutant Education to shuffle some of these crazy event cards back into the deck. He does have the mutant trait, even though some people don't call him a mutant. That's a part of the card. But then you can use the 4th wall ability to get it back. So you shuffle any of those cards that you want into the deck, and then you can immediately grab them. And so it's effectively Mutant Education says you can take 2 cards, put 1 of them into your hand by discarding a card because you can search it. It's so good. You can do a dumb amount of damage with Deadpool. It's gonna be fun. I think, you know, there are people out there who theorize that you can get a 1-turn kill on some of those standard villains, and I mean 2-turn kills are gonna be pretty prevalent, especially if you draw correctly. It's going to be insanely good. I do think that he will be good in all aspects. I think he'll be able to rush in pretty much all aspects, especially with that maximum effort card. And then in multiplayer, if everyone's committed to the rush, you could probably do that. But I think he will be able to fill either a high damage output or a high thwarting role fairly easily. And so with his Yoo-hoo, you can kind of move into dealing with that thwart and manage that for the table. One last thing that I'm going to say is I'm really excited about this hero design because the basic activation of Deadpool is most likely, the most frequent one is probably going to be recovery. And that's just not something that we see a lot before. Because we are utilizing health as a resource, it kind of shifts the meta a little bit, uses the health as those event card resources, and then you can use recover to get that back. And effectively, I'm seeing health as a charge for some of these cards. So it's just like a cool way to shift the game slightly so that you are recovering significantly more because of those event cards. And so Deadpool can thwart, he can attack, he can do everything, but might as well just recover and use that health as a resource. Okay, so One of the biggest shocks for me, actually the biggest shock for me, was the fact that we got a new aspect for Marvel Champions. And that is not a joke. I mean, we actually got a new aspect. It's called the pool aspect. It is the pink aspect, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's all about risky plays. So thematic that is getting paired with Deadpool, but you can play the pool aspect with any hero that we have in Marvel Champions. And so Deadpool loves it, and I think a lot of other characters will love it as well. Let's talk about the 10 cards that were previewed for us, and then we will dive into the fun. Let's talk about allies first. So all the allies we have seen do not take any consequential damage on both their thwart and their attack. However, they come in with a negative icon. This is pretty interesting. I like the design space that this opens up, and I think some of these are really fun. Like Dogpool is a 3-cost pool ally. Crazy that I get to say that. 0/1/4 Stalin, which isn't great, but he does have Retaliate 1 and Toughness. It also is fun. I will point out that when you play Dogpool, you can safely attack with him, and you won't lose that tough status card because he does not take consequential. So you can play Dogpool, he will attack, ready up, take a villain attack probably, Retaliate 1, and then he has a when defeated ability that says deal 1 damage to an enemy. And so usually you're getting 2 blocks out of Dogpool in an expert game with that 4 health, but potentially you can get 3 blocks toughness, not die, and die. And so you're getting a lot of damage and a lot of canceled activations, but it's also, he comes in with an acceleration icon, so the longer he stays on the table, the worse it's going to be for you with threat. And since he doesn't have any threat mitigation, that acceleration icon can be difficult. But usually you're getting about 2 blocks and then probably about 3 damage for this card. Now, he is interesting, but he is nowhere near as cool as our other ally that was previewed for us, which is Deadpool. He's a 3/2/1/1 stat line, and he says that after Deadpool attacks and damages a minion, that minion attacks another enemy of your choice. He comes in with an Amplify, and what this means is I really want to target a villainous minion with this Amplify, because then that villainous can attack the villain with a boost card. Since there's an Amplify on the table from Deadpool, you get to add all of those boost icons into that attack. And if there's no minions, he has a solid 2 thwart. So comes out with that Amplify icon. The Amplify icon is going to be an issue in a lot of games. You have to have an answer for that Amplify icon, which increases the amount of boost icons on any boost card by 1. So if we have an answer to that, Deadpool is going to be a ton of fun, especially with some of these really high attack minions in the game. The way that we're seeing this pool aspect shape up is that they all deal with those negative icons. And so we have cards that deal with icons in play, like Barely a Scratch, which is a 0-cost defense event that says when you would take any amount of damage, prevent 1 of that for each bad icon in play. This is okay. If you watch the last deck building video from Villain 3 and I, that means we want to see at least like 2 or 3 icons in play before this is effective. I think it may be a better late game card, especially if you're playing with Deadpool and you're throwing a ton of those acceleration icons out there. But probably the one that I'm least excited for because it doesn't have early game impact. And with the pool aspect, especially with Deadpool, I'm not sure how much of a late game there actually is going to be. That being said, if you're running alongside of like Live Dangerously, which is a new player side scheme, it gets a lot more payoff because Live Dangerously has all of the icons. It gives every character a +2 hand size, but it has a Crisis, an Amplify, a Hazard, and an Acceleration token. So is that worth +2 hand size? I don't know. Is it good? Maybe? In 4-player, probably. But is it fun? Absolutely it is. Oh my goodness, I want to run this with Fool's Paradise and the fantasy setting, Game of Mojos, and you're just sitting there with a dumb amount of card size. I just think that's a ton of fun. I'm already trying to figure out how to build around this card, because if you have characters like Shadowcat, where she's not as effective by the Crisis and Amplify, then you can kind of deal with threats, and rolling into the player phase with +2 hand size is really strong. And so just the options that it opens up, and if you can leave it on the table for a while and just kind of like, it's going to be fine, I think this will be at least a very fun card, maybe a very good card, especially in those higher player counts. This card can also up the power level of some of the other cards that we've seen for the pool aspect, like I Got This, which has multiple effects based on what bad icons are in play. So like if it's a crisis, you get to deal 3 damage, acceleration, remove 2 threat, amplify, you get to ready an ally you control, and then hazard, you get to draw a card. So if you're playing with Live Dangerously, this 2 effective resource cost card deals 3 damage, removes 2 threat, readies an ally, hopefully like a big cable ally, and replaces itself in your hand. That is a stupid efficient card. That is so many effects for so little cost, and really the only cost of that card is Tempting Fate and severely increasing your likelihood of failure in the Game of World Champions. And so, yeah, I'll take that every single day. What could go wrong, right? We got 2 new upgrades. The first one being Healing Factor. The Healing Factor is a 3-cost upgrade that allows you to heal 2 damage from your identity after the player phase begins. It's a little bit expensive especially for how quickly you're going to want your pool games to end, because I think pool kind of leans itself into rush. Maybe in a higher player count game, this has more of a use case. In a solo game, I don't know if I don't see myself playing this. I would probably rather use those resources elsewhere to help in the game or get rid of some of those crazy icons I've been putting out there. And then another 4th wall break we got is a card called Get Good. This is a 2-cost upgrade that actually is discounted by 2 if you didn't win your previous Game of Champions. I think this is hilarious. I'm sure with the risky pool aspect, it's probably going to be able to be played pretty frequently for free, but what it does is it has a force interrupt that says when a player would be defeated, instead set their HP to 0 and change them to alter ego. So it gives you like a do-over almost, and like I just think that is more fun than it is good. However, it is pretty cool because it could be when any player is defeated. So if I'm sitting here and I am Deadpool, I'm playing the pool aspect, and all of a sudden a gang up gets drawn on my buddy Nova over here, I can use this card in order to protect Nova if he's gonna get beaten to the ground, especially because Deadpool kind of has this ability already built into his kit. The last few cards that got spoiled, I really enjoy because they are different takes on other cards that we already have. Now, all of these are max 1 per deck, which makes them a bit less consistent, but they are so good, so there is that. So, like, for an example, we took Uppercut, and we now have the Cut Upper. So it's a 3-cost event that deals 5 damage and stuns the attacked enemy. And so, instead of just the 3-cost event that deals 5 damage, we now get a stun. And the cost benefit here is that you get the stun, but also it's only 1 per deck, and so it's less consistent, and also it can't be hone techniqued. So there is some situations where you'd still probably want to play Uppercut. I just think it's very fun. The new version of Great Responsibility is very, very good, mainly because it's no longer a hero interrupt. So Great Responsibility says that whenever a threat would be placed on the scheme, you can take it as damage instead. This one says that whenever threat would be placed on a scheme, you or an ally can take it as damage instead, which is especially nice because it is not a hero interrupt. So when the villain schemes, you can take that as damage. Now you have to be careful here, especially if you're playing Deadpool, because that force interrupt is only on the hero side, so you could die, and you don't want to do that. But it is going to be great is to help keep that scheme low, the threat low, especially if you're playing Deadpool and you have to deal with the dumb amount of threat going on the main scheme with all the acceleration tokens. So this is a card that I find I will probably play, especially that second deck pass, if I ever get there with a Deadpool, just because I expect there to be a number of acceleration tokens, and I can use it for the initial threat of stage 1 of the villain phase. The last pool card that we're talking about today is called Get Ragey. It's the same as Get Ready. You get to ready an ally, but they get +1 attack until the end of the phase. It's okay. It can be nice if you're Voltroning an ally, or if these pool allies that don't take consequential damage when they activate, stand them up and just get more activations out of this. But it could be also great for an epic 6 attack from Cable, or if you could ready that leadership player's ally and let them attack again. There's a Voltron ally on the table elsewhere because it's not limited to one of your allies. So I think there is plays here, especially in multiplayer, but also just like if I can get Cable out there with 5 attack, he can attack, get Ragey, attack him for 6 again. That's 11 damage. That's a lot of really quick damage. Out of all of those max 1 per deck cards, I think that this one probably could have been max 2 or even at the 3. But I totally get it, why it's the max 1 per deck. So if you're like me, you read these cards and you're curious, you would probably be curious as to why these cards are just straight up printed better than the original cards, right? So with the pool aspect, cut upper is just better than uppercut. There are niche situations where that's not the case, but pretty much printed, it's better. And that's because there's an added balance mechanism with when you're playing the pool aspect. You have to add the treachery card, Crisis of Infinite Deadpools, into the encounter deck. So whenever you play, anybody plays, you have to add this treachery in there. And it's effectively a new Shadows of the Past that brings in Deadpool and Deadpool Delete Side Scheme, as well as shuffle some nasty cards into the encounter deck. So I really like this balance mechanism, adding something that into the encounter deck that could get pretty nasty pretty quickly for some pretty strong cards. I think is a really cool way and a really cool design space to explore. But let's talk about Deadpool. He is annoying. Deadpool is annoying. He's a 2/2/3 stat line and he engages the first player. But when you defeat him, you deal him to the first player as an encounter card. So he's basically around forever unless you can get around that. And there is a way in this set that you can. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you're running this in a multiplayer game, you better bribe your protection player to bring like a copy of Pin down for him. You can kind of ignore him for a while. But if you just keep attacking him, he's always coming back. It's the Crisis of Infinite Deadpools. They're all around all the time. And that it's going to be an issue. But the side scheme that comes into play whenever you draw this treachery card is called Dreadful Deeds. It comes in with an amplified token, a base 2 threat, and then you add additional threat for each player who controls one or more pool cards. So that amplify icon does kind of stink. It can be tough if to take care of if drawn at the wrong time. But in a solo game, 4 threat, it can be pretty easy to get rid of. Significantly less annoying than Deadpool. Now, the last 2 cards that we got to see are 2 attachments. We got the Anti-Regeneration Ray, which gets attached to Deadpool and gives him a +1 attack. If not, it attaches to the villain. It also gives the attached character an ability that blanks out the text box of the character that they are attacking. So this can like really mess up Deadpool because it no longer allows him to trigger his hero ability. So if you get attacked with this attachment, you have a blank text box, meaning that if you get reduced to 0, you're done. There is nothing, you can't go and be the degenerate regenerating hero. You can't do it because it blanks your text box. But you can get rid of it by spending 3 resources. And by get rid of it, I actually mean you get to attach it to your identity. That is freaking cool. That is so cool. So basically you steal it from Deadpool and I love that. So you get a +1 attack that now blanks minions. So no more when defeated abilities or nasty stuff like that. So if I have Deadpool, because I'm in a Deadpool mood, I have 2 attack, I take this to myself. Maybe I'm able to use a montage to get it with the 3 wild resources. Now I have a +1 attack and pretty much any minion that I defeat with a basic attack, no more when defeated abilities, no more stuff like that. So I think that this is a really cool design. You do really want to get rid of it pretty quickly, but when you do, it's effectively an upgraded version of combat training, which is pretty cool. The last card that we have that we get to talk about today is Poolized. Basically, it steals the highest cost ally on the table and it makes it a pool minion, and then we need to kill off our old friend, which makes us sad. It's effectively enchanted or enthralled, or it's taking our minions and now we have to kill them. So we don't like it. It's bad. I hate that it's the highest cost ally. I hate that. Is so rough. But hopefully we can pull it when we have a Nick Fury out there or something who hopefully, no, that probably wouldn't happen. Hopefully we're pulling it with Karma. I don't know. Hopefully it's not that detrimental because it can be really sad to lose one of those really high cost allies. So since we're recording this video a bit later than normal, I reached out to the community to see what they thought of Deadpool, and let's read and go through some of those responses. Frosty50 says that the Deadpool might be their favorite hero, even more so than Spider-Man. And I can totally see that. I think if you like that high risk, high reward play, if you are a Star-Lord player, Deadpool is going to be right up there as one of your favorite heroes. He is nothing but fun. It is chaos, it is exciting, and it is high risk, high reward. I am looking forward, and I think that Deadpool could be one of those favorite fun heroes for me as well. RJ White is excited to play recklessly against every villain because it's what Deadpool would have wanted, and I totally agree with that. Nocturnal Duck is pumped to try him in other aspects and swap the pool aspects into other heroes. I think that this is one of the coolest things about the aspects. When I first read it, I thought I was a little concerned that it was just going to be, this is the aspect that you have to play with Deadpool. That's not the case. So you can throw the pool aspect into Star-Lord's deck if you are that crazy, or you can throw Deadpool in with aggression, protection, any of that. You can mix and match. It literally is a fifth aspect for us to use with any other hero. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what some of the new cool pool aspects are for some of these heroes. With the amount of cards that we have, I do think that a lot of the pool decks are going to look fairly similar. But one of the things that I am looking forward to doing when we get Deadpool is maybe doing a couple of streams where I take a lot of the older heroes and run them in the pool aspect, because I think that'd be pretty fun. Guarism is looking forward to fight with Thanos for the love of death. And so I think Thanos is going to be a pretty good matchup for Deadpool because you get a lot of attack. Thanos is going to hit you really hard, and that is kind of Thanos' worst abilities. And now Deadpool can take it. He can flip down, he can heal, he can come right back up. But also, with all of these ways to deal massive amounts of damage, you can deal with Thanos' high health pool as well. And I'm going to be interested to see if anyone can get a... Could you do a 2-turn win on Thanos? That'd be curious. Let me know in the comments if you think you can do a 2-turn win on Thanos. I think it could be done. And then Bradley Scott is looking forward to amplifying Deadpool's abilities by going against Sandman. That's going to be a tough one. There's a lot of indirect damage and so much damage potential all at the same time. Now, I think this is going to be Deadpool's worst matchup because in Sandman's encounter, whenever an acceleration token is placed on the main scheme, you deal 3 indirect damage to the first player. So if you're playing solo, Deadpool does his ability, he flips to alter ego, he has 1 health, now you're taking 3 indirect damage because you had to place that acceleration token. If you don't have allies, you die. There is no forced response on your alter ego side. So I think Sandman is going to be a really tough matchup for Deadpool. You have to make sure you have space for that indirect damage to go. That is not Deadpool's alter ego. All that being said, I wonder how many accelerations that matchup could yield, because I think it could get chaotic real quickly. All in all, I am really excited for Deadpool and this game's future and where it's going. I can't wait to get him in my hands in November. And yes, I did read that part. I don't know if... I'm sure a lot of people caught that, but I loved the article. I thought the article was written very well, with kind of like all of the Deadpool shenanigans going on with it. But yes, I did read the part that I could order it from a retailer in November. Looking forward to getting him in the hands with him and all of the other new mutants in this wave. There's so much good stuff coming out, and I am pumped to try it all. Thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you think about Deadpool in the comments, and I look forward to chatting with you all about him. Peace.